Well, by the skin of their teeth and with the tie-breaking vote of J.D. Vance in the United States Senate, the Republicans, on a party line vote with three defections from their own party, passed what is the got to be the biggest monstrosity of a domestic policy bill that I have certainly lived through in my life. This is a bill that will add $3.3 trillion to the United States deficit and to pay for the the extraordinary spending that we see in the form of tax cuts for the very wealthiest. Will pay for that with over $1 trillion in cuts to Americans' health care, mostly coming out of Medicaid, also major cuts to SNAP food stamps, huge cuts um, to programs that Americans of all stripes rely on day in and day out to fund not only those tax cuts for billionaires, but also for huge funding increases to immigration and customs enforcement, the very agency that has been devastating Americans and making people live in fear from this tyrannical regime. The fight is not over as bad as this looks right now in the United States Senate. We're going to dig into how things went down in the U.S. Senate, what this bill looks like coming out of the Senate. But to dig into what we can do to fight back against this monstrosity here right now this week, I'm thrilled to be joined by the co-founder, co-president of Indivisible, my friend Ezra Levin, who has been just on the front lines mobilizing millions of Americans to stand up against this. Thrilled to be with you here today, Ezra. Thanks for joining us again on Midas Touch Legal AF. I'm Alex Aronson. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, but I want to make sure we dive right into it. So we're taping this here on Tuesday afternoon. Ezra, we just got word out of the Senate that this bill passed. Can you give us a rundown? I give a very high level overview, but what's in this bill and what did it take for Republicans to get it through the Senate?
Look, this bill is the largest transfer of wealth from working class Americans to the wealthy in the history of the country. Simply put, that is what it is. It is class warfare on American families and American workers to serve the oligarchy. That's what this bill does. It transfers wealth from you to them. And that's what the Republican Party can align on. If there's one thing they can align on, there's a lot of disagreements in that party. What they love to do is to cut taxes for billionaires and then cut healthcare and other services for you. That is the foundation of the modern Republican Party. And it's no coincidence that in addition to that basic social and economic policy, they are also directly attacking our democratic institutions, because you can't have a deeply unpopular policy agenda and a functioning democracy at the same time. You can't have both of those things, because you know what happens if you do? The bastards get voted out. The public doesn't want tax cuts for billionaires. They don't want it. The public doesn't want Medicaid cuts. The Medicaid cuts pull at 15% in the deepest red districts in the country. This is a deeply unpopular agenda. The public does not want to take the militarization of LA as a rehearsal and then do that in cities all across the country, which is what this bill promises to do. All of this is deeply unpopular. All of it. So this bill took some time to get through the Senate. I think it's worth noting when we started this campaign, not just Indivisible, but the broader coalition to push back against this, we didn't know if we were going to get any Republicans in the Senate on board. It was really up in the air because of how aligned they are on tax cuts for billionaires and cutting healthcare and other services. What we saw over the course of this fight is there's a lot of fear on the Republican side. They understand how deeply unpopular this is, and that's why you're seeing them try to expedite it. They're trying to move forward as quickly as possible because millions upon millions of Americans don't even know this bill exists, let alone what's in the bill. And they are terrified that if the public has a chance to focus in on it, then opposition will build and the squishier members of their coalition will fall off, will vote against it. That is exactly what happened with the 2017 reconciliation bill, better known as the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. They tried to push it through as quickly as possible. We delayed it, pressure mounted, and ultimately we were able to kill the bill. This fight is not over. This fight is not over. I want to be really clear. It has passed the Senate. We had the big question mark was Lisa Murkowski going to provide the deciding vote? She did. Then she offered a bullshit explanation and said, well, I hope the House amends it and pushes it back to us. Ain't going to happen. Not going to happen. That's just covering her ass comments after she betrayed her constituents. But just because the Senate passed it by the skin of their teeth doesn't mean it's going to pass the House. You have the crazies in the House who want it to be even worse. And then you have the moderates, or as I would just call them, the vulnerable members of the Republican caucus in the House who are very worried their constituents are going to vote them out of office if they vote for this bill. And they should be worried. They can afford to lose 3 votes in the House of Representatives. That's nothing. That is nothing. We have 26 target Republicans in the House who we are putting pressure on because we believe we can win them over to our side. We need 4. We need 4 to flip over our side. The thing that is going to shift votes in this moment, it's looking like there could be a vote as soon as tomorrow. The thing that is going to shift votes in this moment is overwhelming public opposition. We need to bring home the point to these Republicans that their constituents are paying attention and that there is a dire consequence for their own personal, professional, political future if they vote for this bill. And you do that by in-person and virtual calling, emails, action. You need to let your member of Congress know that you want to see them fighting out this, against this. That goes for you if you've got a Democratic member. You want to see them out there making speeches, getting attention, educating the public. And it especially goes for you if you've got a Republican right now. Now is the time to let them know that you care, you are watching, and you expect them to represent you. And tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your colleagues, this is the time. If you've never called Congress before, now is the time to do it. It's super easy to do.
Yeah. Can't endorse that enough. Thank you so much for providing those resources. We'll make sure to put them in the notes. And I just want to weave together a couple of things you said, also building on some of our past conversations. You know, we talked after you and Indivisible and your coalition partners organized the hands-off protests in the intervening time. You also organized the No Kings protest. I believe that was the biggest protest I saw reported in world history. Collectivized, right? You know, decentralized and collectivized. I can tell you're going to be humble, but
it was an incredible effort. It was an incredible effort in 2,169 communities all across the world, 27 countries, every single state, every single congressional district. There's a lot of people power out there right now, and it's getting organized.
And it's in these red states and districts where
That's right.
folks can make the difference. And that connects, of course, to the need for action now. And, you know, we're taping this here Tuesday, the middle of the day that we just got the news less than an hour ago that this bill passed. And so this is a critical window. We'll get this video up soon and get folks mobilized and activated because they need to hear from you right now. And,
That's
know, a lot of focus on the Senate over the last week or so, but before then there was, you know, House action, House focus all the time because, as you say, the margins there were so slim. It was a three vote majority in the Senate with the necessary vice presidential vote I mentioned at the top, but the 3 vote margin in the Senate is much bigger than in the House, where you've got all these members who are worried about their reelections and really vulnerable to the type of calls and public pressure that we need to mount right now.
Yeah, look, Tom Tillis, North Carolina, he said he's voting against it and he's not even running for re-election. It's so bad. He is predicting the dire political consequences for his colleagues accurately. Now, he and other Republicans are being pushed by Donald Trump and his cohort. This is why he believes it's untenable for him to run for re-election. He can either vote for a terrible bill that endangers his own constituents, or he can come up against the MAGA political machine in his next primary. He can't do both of those. So he's choosing to vote against the bill, which is good. Susan Collins is voting against as well because she's up for re-election next year. She understands that she will lose re-election if she votes for this. Now, she's not killing the bill because she hasn't coordinated with her colleagues adequately to actually take it down. But there's a reason why she's voting against it. There's a reason why you're seeing Republicans get cold feet is because they understand the political consequences of this bill, and it's terrible for them. But we need to raise the temperature now. The most recent polling I've seen on this is millions upon millions of Americans literally don't know this bill exists, let alone what's in it. We have to educate them that this is real. This isn't some hypothetical thing. This isn't just partisan squabbling. It's just not Congress as usual. This is this weird situation in which Congress is about to do a big thing. Congress never does shit. Congress never gets anything done. So the correct expectation is that Congress is just, there's a lot of yelling and there's a lot of news coverage, whatever. It's just fighting, though. It's not real. This is real. This is going to come for people's families, their communities. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to directly impact your life. And it's likely to pass now unless there is a massive public intervention. And so we need to generate that public intervention. All we need are four members of the House. So if you've got a Republican member of the House, by all means, please call. And if you're feeling bold, your Republican member of the House has a congressional district office, probably somewhere nearby where you live. Get a few friends together and show up. You don't have to be an expert in healthcare policy or tax policy. Your legitimacy comes from the fact that you are a constituent and you're showing up to say, hey, you're my representative. I would really like you to represent me. Please vote against this bill. Showing up does wonders. It really makes them think again that, oh my gosh, people are really paying attention. Nobody ever shows up at our office and they're showing up to tell me that they don't want me to vote for this bill. I've got to factor that in. If you can't show up, that's okay. Give a call. Call the Capitol switchboard or call your office directly and let them know who you are, where you live, that this person is your representative and that you expect them to vote against it.
Yeah. Ezra, maybe you could break us down just a little bit in a little bit more detail what's actually in this that is going to affect people in their real lives. Because I think what you
Yeah.
said is so important, the way they've stuffed a huge amount of substantive policymaking in addition to a huge amount of spending and major cuts that
Yeah.
they very much know are not going to be broken out. I mean, they haven't even read the bill themselves at the length it is. You know, they don't
Yeah.
know what they're voting on. We saw that out of the House version. We saw people like Marjorie Taylor Greene say, oh, I would have voted the opposite way if I had known. But this is by design, right? They
Yeah.
know that people aren't going to be able to unpack this. They're not going to be able to
That's right.
connect the dots for how it's going to affect their lives soon enough for them to start feeling the electoral consequences. So we need to start making those realities really plain to people, I think, so that they can make those connections sooner and sooner.
Yeah, so the first purpose of this bill is to provide the largest tax cut to the wealthy in the history of the American Republic. That's the first purpose. And then the question is, how do you make the math work? That's the challenge for the Republicans. Okay, we want to cut taxes for corporations and billionaires and millionaires. That's the starting place. Okay, we're going to do that. Now, how do we make room for that? How can we actually make room for that? And their answer is, oh, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut Medicaid by more than $1 trillion, the largest cut to Medicaid by a factor of 4 in the history of the country. We're going to cut Medicaid. That's not popular. Like I said, 15% approval rating, but in any congressional district, including Marjorie Taylor Greene's or Lauren Boebert's. But that's one way we're going to make room for these tax cuts to rich people. Another way, we're going to kick about 12 million people off of food stamps. So food stamps for families trying to get by, trying to feed their kids. We're going to cut 12 million people off of SNAP, otherwise known as food stamps.
20% cut to SNAP. Yeah.
It's insane. It is insane. In addition to that, you know what we're going to do? All this green energy investment, nah, we're going to eliminate all of that. We're going to take billions of dollars, eliminate hundreds of thousands of jobs, and we're just going to cut those federal subsidies out. This is one of the reasons why you see Elon Musk losing his shit right now. He's worried that his industry is not going to get as much subsidy. But this is true of the whole country. This is true for the entire world. We're going to have less investment in green energy. Now, one thing that does not help make the math worse for rich people, but they just hate immigrants so much that they're going for it. They're going to balloon the size of the ICE deportation force to be larger than many militaries around the world. We're talking thousands upon thousands of additional ICE agents. We're talking about billions of dollars for their deportation scheme, for their American internment camps that they would like to build. They're treating LA as this rehearsal, as this, let's see what we can do. We can militarize LA. We can terrorize communities. We can break apart families. Okay, we tried it out in LA, but we just don't have enough money to do that elsewhere. We want to do that in New York City. We want to do that in Chicago. We want to do that in Austin. We want to do that in Seattle. But gosh darn it, ICE doesn't have enough money to do it in those cities. So how do we do it? Well, we use this bill. We cut SNAP. We cut energy programs. We cut Medicaid in order to fund that deportation regime and give a big, giant tax cut to millionaires and billionaires. This is one of the least popular, most extreme pieces of legislation in the history of America. That's not an overstatement. That's what it is. And Congress is 4 votes away from passing this through the House of Representatives. We can kill this. We can kill this. This is not a done deal. But what we have found in the history of fighting these advocacy fights is most of the time, most people are just not paying attention. That's normal. Most people don't pay attention to what Congress is doing because most of the time, Congress isn't doing anything that's going to directly affect their lives. We are now going to see whether as this becomes more real, more people say, oh no, okay, now I've got to do something. we need them to do that in this moment. So again, if you've never engaged in Congress with your member of Congress, now's the time. If you do call regularly, now's the time to reach out to your mom, your grandma, your kids, your colleagues, your classmates, whoever isn't super plugged in. Let them know, hey, this is about to really happen. This is on the verge of happening, and they're nervous people are going to push back against it. So here's the number. Give a call. Make sure that they know you're watching.
Yeah. And these folks, we've talked about it before. I'm a former Senate staffer. These members of Congress, they are watching their mail. They're watching their calls. Yeah. They know what kind of incoming they're getting. This stuff makes a difference. Ezra, Levin, thank you so much for all of the organizing, all of the tremendous, courageous leadership you are driving at Indivisible, for everything you were doing, for taking the time to join us here at Midas Touch Legal AF to get this important information out. We'll make sure to link to all of your calls to action and to your incredible resources in our show notes. Folks, thank you for spending time with us. This is a good one for you to share with your friends and family, just like Ezra said. Even if you aren't as engaged, make those phone calls, get this one out there. Folks really need to get mobilized this week. Otherwise, we'll be living with the consequences of this one for the rest of our lives, quite literally. Yeah. Ezra, thanks again so much. Until next time, friends, stay mad, stay motivated, stay mighty. I'm Alex Aronson, signing off.
Thanks, Alex.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.